It takes a lot to make my jaw drop, and I've seen a lot of television across many different genres, but nothing as twisted and sickening as Netflix's latest documentary series. At nearly 11 hours, it's very long for a documentary series, and finishing it is a daunting task, not just because of the length, but because of the grisly content contained within. Making a Murderer transcends its Netflix origin and will be one of the most talked about television programs of 2016. Today, why you should watch Making a Murderer.
There was no real investigation done by the sheriff's department.
The sheriff told the DA not to screw this case up. He wanted Avery convicted of this crime.
There isn't one iota of physical evidence in this case that connects Stephen Avery to it.
True crime television has been growing in popularity over the past several years across many forms. HBO's True Detective took the genre to new heights in the beginning of 2014, followed by the Peabody-winning podcast Serial, and last year's HBO documentary The Jinx, which covered the supposed murders of Robert Durst. Whereas Durst in The Jinx was already a prominent public figure before his alleged crimes, Making a Murderer tells the story of Stephen Avery, a low-profile man from a small corner of Wisconsin. Avery, at the age of 23 in 1985, was arrested by Manitowoc police for rape and served 18 years in jail for a crime he did not commit. He maintained his innocence the entire time, and eventually evidence came out allowing for his release.
Stephen Avery spent 18 years in prison for something he didn't do.
18 years.
18 years.
DNA had come through indicating that he had not committed the crime.
As time went on, it became apparent that the police investigation was heavily mismanaged, maybe even intentionally, and there are thoughts that Avery was framed for the crime.
Law enforcement officers realized that they had screwed up big time.
2 years after his release, in October of 2005, Avery and his nephew Brandon Dacey were arrested and charged with the murder of photographer Teresa Halbeck.
Do we have a body or anything yet?
I don't believe so.
We have Stephen Avery in custody, though.
Without spoiling the case, which is the focus of the documentary, Making a Murderer cuts no corners with its all-encompassing look at the case. With a seemingly endless well of video recordings, audio recordings, legal documents, interrogations, interviews, local media, family profiles, police reports, and extensive courtroom segments, Making a Murderer uses its 11 hours to show every corner of the Stephen Avery investigation. Rather than focusing on Avery himself, the documentary takes its focus on those around him and the events that unfold, and what it reveals is shocking. First and foremost, in a time when Americans already hold unfavorable opinions of law enforcement and our legal system, Making a Murderer drops a bomb on American criminal justice. What happened in Manitowoc County, Wisconsin is a never-ending tragedy of police mismanagement and incompetence. The show makes it clear in the very first episode that local officials are not to be trusted and might actively be impeding justice to fulfill their own agendas. And as the documentary progresses and Avery's defense lawyers become more prominent, we learn more and more about the corruption of small-town police departments. It's the fear that this can happen anywhere that sticks with you after the show. The legal system is also exposed as a farce, with District Attorney Ken Kratz being shown as perhaps the legal equivalent of Martin Shkreli. A secondary plot point in Making a Murderer is how a power gap exists in small towns between law enforcement and the marginalized.
They didn't dress like everybody else. They didn't have education like other people. The Avery family didn't fit into the community.
In today's public spectrum, it's racial minorities who generally fill this role, but in Making a Murderer, the marginalized demographic are poor, not remarkably bright, blue-collar workers, who have neither the means nor the respect to stand up to law enforcement and have a fair fight in the legal system. The Avery family are outliers in their community, which they feel makes them a prime target in the investigations covered in the show. Unlike The Jinx, where you could feel the filmmaker's agenda, Making a Murderer is refreshingly free of a forced narrative. Directors Laura Ricciardi and Maria Damos want to give the viewers as much information as possible and let the viewer draw their own conclusions, keeping their own opinions out of the proceedings. And from a production standpoint, Making a Murderer is a revelation. The director spent a decade putting all these pieces together, and it shows. The staggering amount of footage and facts presented makes the impact of these revelations harshly felt. Sitting through all 10 episodes, like I said, is a daunting task, and it will make you feel sick and angry at how inept our criminal justice system can be.
Law enforcement despised Stephen Avery. Stephen Avery was a shining example of their inadequacies, their misconduct.
The sheriff had ordered that Stephen's name not be on the jail list, that he not be allowed any access to the phone, which is illegal, that he not be allowed any visitors, and that he be held in a cell block all by himself so he could have no contact with anybody.
Composer Kevin Kiner gives Making a Murderer a low-key score that ramps up the tension without you even noticing. And finally, this series features award-worthy editing. The way this puzzle is stitched together over 10 episodes keeps viewers engaged and constantly guessing what will happen next. The deliberately slow pace allows the humanity of the show to sink in, never letting you forget that people's lives are being destroyed on both sides of this case.
The disappearance of Teresa Halbach remains a mystery.
Mr. Avery's blood is found inside of Teresa Halbach's vehicle.
Steve, everybody's listening. What do you want to say today?
I'm innocent.
If convicted, Stephen Avery will spend the rest of his life in prison.
We found a key.
That key was scrubbed and his DNA was placed on it.
This is really strange.
What's going on here?
I could go on and analyze every single piece of Making a Murderer, but I won't because 1, I'm not a legal analyst, and 2, you should go into this program knowing as little as possible about the case, and especially without knowing how it ends. The less you know, the more you'll be surprised, and that's why I haven't talked about the case itself. This show will captivate you and make you miserable at the same time. It's a very emotionally taxing viewing experience. The twists this story takes puts almost all of scripted television to shame. You just can't make this stuff up. Making a Murderer is an absolutely must-watch media, will be talked about all year long, and is currently available on Netflix. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it. And if you want to recommend Making a Murderer to someone, feel free to send this link their way. That is the point of my recommendation videos. Anyways, feel free to like the video. Let's have a conversation in the comments below. Please subscribe if you have not already done so, and stay tuned for more here on TVJunkie. Now, if you don't mind, I'm going to go watch the 10 Cloverfield Lane trailer for the 17th time.